Hey guys, this is Gary. In this video I want to talk a little bit about travel photography. I recently went to Paris, and we also took a train to some other areas outside of Paris. But anyway, so one of the things I did, which I don't recommend, is I brought two completely different camera systems with me. And I did that for a reason. I mean, I wanted to see how each one performed and what each one would be best at. So I think I learned a couple things that I'd like to pass on. So right off the bat, the first system I built around the Fuji X100S. Now this is a very versatile camera. It's small, it's light, it's unobtrusive, it's great for shooting in the city, and it turns out this is the only camera I felt I needed, and in fact the only camera I used in Paris. You know, I didn't miss having different focal length choices, which is really the only downside to this camera. It's got a fixed 23mm lens, which because of the crop sensor translates to about a 35mm focal length. And also, one of the things you may want to consider bringing with you is an off-camera flash. Like I brought a flash with me. I used the Yongnuo 560-2. It's a great flash. It's inexpensive. It's roughly $50 now, which is amazing to me. And I used an off-camera trigger system, a very inexpensive system by Cowboy Studio. And this is the transmitter. It goes on the hot shoe of the flash, of the camera. And then the receiver goes on the bottom of the flash. So this way I could, do some handheld off-camera flash stuff. And I want to show you this image, which I shot at a graveyard inside of Paris. And if you look at this image, I lit the statue with the flash, and I set an ambient exposure about 2 stops, stop and a half, 2 stops under. So I was able to create pretty dramatic lighting with one flash, which is kind of cool. So I always have a flash with me, and you might want to consider bringing a flash with you when you're traveling. All right, and then I put everything in this very inexpensive camera bag. It's very small. It's a shoulder bag. It's got a ton of pockets. To reiterate, if you're traveling in the city, I think a really good point and shoot or one of the newer mirrorless cameras is a much better choice than a DSLR where you have to change lenses and all that. All right, enough of that. So that was the first system. The second system, this is, here it is. It's, first of all, this is the Lowepro Flipside 300. It's a backpack. One of the cool things about it is that you access your gear from the side that's on your back. So when you're wearing the backpack, nobody can steal your stuff. Nobody can come up behind you and unzip a pouch or whatever and reach in. It's impossible. The back has nothing on it. Now, there is a pouch here for a tripod, and then this strap, so you can't hold a tripod. And yeah, somebody could steal my tripod, but the fact of the matter is nobody did. Which brings up another thing you might want to consider bringing, a tripod. Now, again, when I was in Paris, I don't think a tripod is a practical thing to bring with you. You really want to be handheld. You really want to be walking around, and a tripod is just going to be a pain to carry around with you. So I used this system, which is my Canon 5D Mark II and a couple of different lenses, and a tripod, because we would go outside the city, and it was a lot easier when we visited these different castles and different locations to set up a tripod and do some shots that way. Plus, shooting in low light at night, which I love to do in or out of Paris, is much easier with a tripod. So you might want to consider bringing a good lightweight tripod. But in my case, I would just strap the tripod in the back of this backpack. So it worked really well. Now, let me just show you the inside of this backpack. So here's my camera. body. I've got a flash in here as well. In here I've got some filters and an off-camera triggering system as well. I've got my 17 to 40. I've got here's my 70 to 200, and I even have an 85 mil f1.8, which I rarely used. And the fact of the matter is, this is kind of a lot to bring with you. And notice that I don't have a lens on here now because I don't own a good mid-range zoom lens. So I rented one, and I rented one from Lens Rentals. That's with an S, lensrentals.com. And I rented the Canon 24 to 105 mil f4 lens. And really, that focal length range is perfect. I very rarely used my 70 to 200, and I very rarely used my 17 to 40. For those super wide shots, I would occasionally bring this out. But for the most part, I would say 80 to 90% of the time I used the lens I rented, the 24 to 105. So if I had it to do over again, I would just rent that lens and leave this stuff at home, and probably wouldn't even bring this backpack. All right, so those are the two systems. So to recap, here's what I would recommend. If you're traveling in the city, I don't think this is a very good option. I just don't. I think having a big bulky DSLR could be a real pain. And if I did have nothing but a DSLR, I would, and I didn't own a good mid-range zoom lens, I would rent one and just bring that. Maybe have like a hip pack or something so I could put the camera in, but not this big thing. And then always having an external flash is a great option for me. I love using an external flash. Bringing extra light to the table helps you create some very interesting shots. And then the other thing you might want to consider is a tripod. I don't know what to tell you about that. It's a personal choice. I mean, for me, I use the tripod because I like to shoot at night. That's primarily the kind of shots that I take, especially when I'm traveling. So I kind of have to have a tripod. But again, in the city during the day, I used my Fuji, no tripod, handheld, boom, it was great. So this was just about trying to give you some good options and a little insight as to what to bring with you. Bottom line, bring the bare minimum. That's what I would say. Oh, I'm sorry, one more thing. If you are going to bring a DSLR system, then I would recommend bringing two filters with you. Number one, a polarizer is a good thing to have, a circular polarizer. You can put it on the end of your lens, and if you look at this picture I shot from the train, this is a good example of where a polarizer can really help you, because I was shooting through a window and there was reflections on that window that were reflecting the inside of the train. Well, the polarizer really helps to minimize those. So a polarizer is a good thing to have. I didn't have a polarizer on my Fuji, however. And the other thing would be a neutral density filter for those times when you want to get a very slow shutter in broad daylight. And there is one built into my Fuji, so I didn't need one for that. But this is a good thing to have for a DSLR. Now, I have to say, these aren't cheap. This is an 8-stop stop-down filter. It rotates. You can darken or lighten the scene. And it was over $100. So it's not a cheap thing. And if you don't really know how to use it, then don't buy it. But for those of you that understand what I mean about getting a slow shutter speed in the middle of the day, you definitely want one of these. And that's about it. All right, I can't think of anything else. I'm sorry, one more thing, sorry. I have a new website. It's called meetyourcamera.com. For those of you that have been following me on my GaryDatesPhotos.com website, well, I'm re-engineering that site to be for my portfolio exclusively. So all of the educational stuff is gone from there. It's now on meetyourcamera.com. All the videos, all the blog posts about photography and stuff, that's all on my meetyourcamera.com website. So check that out. It's all free, and I'll see you next time. Bye.